The wind howled over the wide, empty plains, carrying the cry of coyotes through the frozen night. The old ranch house stood alone on the horizon, dark, silent, except for the faint flicker of a lamp behind one curtain. Inside, Ethan Cole, a man no older than 35 but worn like a man of 60, rocked his infant son in trembling arms. The baby's cries tore through the night like shards of glass, echoing in the lonely wooden walls. His wife Sarah had been gone 3 months, buried on the hill behind the barn, where the wildflowers grew even in the dust. Since then, sleep had become a ghost Ethan didn't believe in anymore. Tonight was colder than usual. Frost clung to the window frames, and the fire in the hearth was dying low. Ethan whispered to the child, his voice cracked and low. "Hush now, Noah. I know, son. I know." He paced back and forth, his boots thudding softly on the old floorboards. He was bone-tired, eyes hollow, beard grown wild. A man trying to hold himself together for the sake of one tiny heartbeat in his arms. Then, just as the clock struck 12, a knock. 3 sharp raps at the door. He froze. No one came to the ranch at this hour. Not since the funeral. The neighbors kept their distance out of respect and out of pity. Ethan stared at the door, the baby still crying softly in his chest. For a moment he thought he'd imagined it. The wind, maybe. But then the knock came again, louder, more desperate. He set the baby gently in the cradle, whispering a shaky promise. "Don't you cry, little one. Daddy'll be right back." The wooden floor creaked as he stepped toward the door. The wind slipped through the cracks, whispering against his skin like something alive. His hand trembled as he reached for the latch, and when he opened the door, there she was. A young woman stood on the porch, her hair damp from the cold, eyes wide and pleading. Her clothes were simple, worn but neat. She clutched a small suitcase, and her breath came out in quick clouds. She looked no older than 23, yet something in her face carried the weight of a lifetime. "I'm sorry to wake you," she said, voice soft but trembling. "Please, I need work. I heard you needed help around the ranch. I can cook, clean, take care of the baby if—" Her voice faltered when she saw the little cradle inside, the faint crying echoing through the house. Ethan stared, too stunned to speak. His first thought was that she must have lost her way. No one in their right mind came miles out here. Through the cold, in the middle of the night, he studied her, the pale lips, the shivering hands, the mud on her shoes. Desperation clung to her like frost. "What kind of woman shows up at a ranch this far out, at midnight?" he asked finally, his voice rough from disuse. "The kind that doesn't have anywhere else to go," she whispered. The words hung in the air between them, fragile, honest, cutting. Ethan hesitated. He didn't trust strangers, not since the accident, not since people had come to whisper condolences only to gossip, when they thought he couldn't hear. But there was something about her eyes, not deceitful, not proud, just tired. The same kind of tired he carried in his own soul. Another cry came from the cradle, sharp, hungry, helpless. The woman looked toward it instinctively, stepping forward. "Is he hungry?" she asked. "Do you have milk ready?" He blinked, taken aback. "You know about babies?" "I helped raise 3 of my siblings," she said softly. "And I worked as a nanny before." Her fingers tightened around the handle of her suitcase. "Please, just one night. If you don't trust me, I'll be gone by morning." Ethan's jaw clenched. He didn't want company. He didn't want pity. But as another cold gust swept through the door, the baby wailed again, louder this time, and something inside him broke. He stepped aside. "Come in before you freeze to death." She exhaled in relief, stepping into the faint glow of the hearth. The warmth hit her face, and she blinked against it, as if afraid it wasn't real. Ethan shut the door behind her, locking out the screaming wind. He nodded toward the baby. "Name's Noah." She smiled faintly, kneeling beside the cradle. "Hi, little one." Her hands were steady, gentle, the kind that had known both work and care. She hummed softly, an old lullaby Ethan hadn't heard since Sarah. Slowly, miraculously, the crying faded. For a moment, the only sound was the crackle of fire and the baby's soft breathing. Ethan found himself staring. Something about the scene, the woman, the child, the hush of the night, felt almost sacred. He shook his head, trying to clear it. "You can stay the night," he said gruffly. "Guest room's down the hall." "We'll talk in the morning." She nodded, grateful. "Thank you, Mr. Cole." He paused. "Ethan, just Ethan." "I'm Lila," she said. "Thank you, Ethan." He gave a short nod and turned away, trying not to let the strange warmth in his chest take root. He'd buried love once. He wasn't about to dig it up again. But as he lay awake hours later, listening to the quiet house, to the baby's steady breathing and the faint hum of a woman's voice from down the hall, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something had come back to life, and he didn't know whether to be grateful or afraid. Morning light spilled across the ranch like a pale gold ribbon, washing the frost from the windows and chasing away the ghosts of the night before. Ethan woke before dawn as he always did, though this time the silence felt different, softer, less hollow. Somewhere in the kitchen he heard the faint clatter of pans, a sound that hadn't graced this house since Sarah passed. He pushed out of bed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. For a moment, he thought he'd dreamed the whole thing. The knock, the woman, the soft voice calming Noah. But when he stepped into the hallway, the smell of coffee and bread told him it was real. Lila stood by the stove, sleeves rolled up, hair tied loosely back, humming under her breath. The baby sat in a basket nearby, cooing happily as she stirred a pot of oatmeal. The morning sun fell through the window, painting her in gold, and for a fleeting second, Ethan saw something that made his chest ache. He saw home. She turned, startled. "Oh, good morning, Ethan. I hope you don't mind. I found a few things in the pantry. Thought you might like breakfast." Ethan scratched at his jaw. "Mind? It's been a while since anyone made breakfast in this house." She smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "Then I'm glad to be the first." They ate in silence, the sound of the wind against the window panes, the only witness to their uneasy peace. Ethan watched her hands, how they moved with care, steady and patient, the kind of hands that had known struggle but hadn't forgotten gentleness. After breakfast, she insisted on cleaning. She moved through the house like she'd been born to it, sweeping, washing, folding, even fixing the curtains that had hung half-torn for months. Ethan wanted to tell her to rest, that she didn't have to do all that. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she seemed to be fixing more than just the house. Maybe she was patching something in him too. When afternoon rolled around, Ethan was out mending a fence when he saw her standing near the hill, the one where Sarah's grave lay under the cottonwood tree. Lila had a small bunch of wildflowers in her hands. She knelt, placed them gently on the headstone, and bowed her head. Ethan froze, heart twisting. No one had touched that grave but him. He walked up quietly. "How'd you know her name?" Lila stood slowly. "It's on the stone," she said softly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude." He looked down at the flowers, fresh, simple, beautiful. "You didn't." They stood there for a moment in silence, the wind carrying the whisper of leaves. Finally, Lila spoke again. "She must have been a good woman." "She was," Ethan said, voice low. "Too good for this world." Lila's eyes softened. "You loved her deeply." "I still do." "I can see that." She paused, fingers twisting in her skirt. "Losing someone like that, it doesn't ever really stop hurting, does it?" He shook his head. "No, you just learn to breathe around the ache." She nodded, looking away, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of pain in her eyes, the same kind of pain that lived in his. That night, when the wind rose again, Lila stayed by the fire with Noah in her arms, rocking him gently while Ethan mended a broken saddle strap. The house was alive again, the crackle of the hearth, the faint melody of her hum, the soft gurgle of the baby's laughter. But peace never lasts long in the wild. Around midnight, a pair of headlights cut through the darkness. A truck pulled up in the yard, tires crunching over gravel. Ethan rose, his instincts sharp. No one came this far out without a reason. He opened the door just as a man stepped out, tall, mean-eyed, with a scar down his cheek. "Well, I'll be," the man drawled. "Didn't think I'd find you here, Lila." Lila froze, color draining from her face. Ethan looked between them. "You know this man?" Her voice trembled. I used to work for him." The man sneered. "Work? You mean run off with my money, sweetheart? You think you can hide out here, play nanny for some broken-down cowboy? Ethan stepped forward, jaw tight. Watch your mouth. The man laughed. Or what? You gonna shoot me, rancher? Ain't much of a fight left in you, from what I hear. Ethan's eyes darkened. You heard wrong. He didn't raise his voice, didn't need to. The quiet weight of it was enough. He stepped between the man and Lila, shielding her without a word. Lila clutched Noah tighter, eyes wet with fear. The man spat on the dirt. This ain't over. I'll be back for what's mine. He turned and stomped off. The truck's engine roaring into the night until it vanished over the hill. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The baby whimpered softly. Finally, Ethan turned to her. Tell me the truth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I didn't steal anything. I worked for him in town, cooking, cleaning, taking care of his sick mother. When she passed, he wanted me to stay for other reasons. I refused. He wouldn't take no for an answer, so I ran. That's the truth, Ethan, I swear it. Ethan's chest ached at the raw fear in her eyes. He believed her, every word. You're safe here, he said quietly. He won't touch you. She stared at him, disbelief warring with relief. Why? You barely know me. Because I know what it's like to lose everything, he said. And I won't let it happen to you, too. For the first time, she broke down, silent tears falling as she clung to the baby, who reached up and grabbed her finger, smiling through the storm. From that night on, things began to change. Lola became more than just a stranger seeking shelter. She became part of the ranch. She helped Ethan rebuild the barn, plant the spring crops, and laugh again. Slowly, day by day, she filled the empty spaces that grief had carved in his soul. And yet, every time she looked at him, there was a question in her eyes. Something she wanted to say, but couldn't. Something waiting for the right moment. That moment came one evening, when the sun dipped low behind the hills, turning the sky to fire. She found him sitting on the porch, baby Noah asleep in his lap. Ethan, she said softly, there's something I need to tell you. He looked up, brow furrowing. What is it? She hesitated, then reached into her pocket. She pulled out a folded letter, worn, faded, the edges frayed by time. She handed it to him. He unfolded it slowly, eyes scanning the neat handwriting. Then his breath caught. The letter was signed by Sarah Cole, his late wife. He looked up, stunned. Where did you get this? Lila's eyes shimmered. She wrote it to me before she passed. I was her nurse at the clinic in town. She told me about you, about the baby, the ranch, her fear of leaving you both alone. Before she went, she made me promise something. She said, go to him when the time comes. He won't ask for help, but he'll need it. Ethan's throat tightened. He read the letter again, Sarah's words blurring through his tears. If you ever find him alone, help him remember what it feels like to live again. The world seemed to stand still. The sky, the wind, even the earth beneath his boots, all of it held its breath. Ethan looked at her, really looked. The woman who had shown up at midnight, trembling in the cold. The woman who'd brought warmth back to his home, laughter to his son, and hope to a heart that thought it had died with his wife. He whispered, voice breaking, you came because she sent you. Lila nodded, tears glistening. I came because she believed you deserved to live again. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. Then he reached out, his rough hand covering hers. You kept your promise, he said. Lila smiled through her tears. And I'll keep doing it, for as long as you'll let me. He looked at Noah sleeping peacefully, then back at her. And for the first time since Sarah's passing, Ethan felt something bloom in his chest that wasn't grief. It was life, and under the vast, starlit sky of the ranch, the widowed rancher, the crying baby, and the woman who, knocked at midnight finally, found what they'd all been searching for, a home.